All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fourth episode of Dear Dr. Fantasy. And I am so delighted to have for my very special guest, my friend Petrik. Hello, Petrik. How are you?
Hi, Philip. Thank you. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for inviting me to Dear Dr. Fantasy. I think this is the first time I've been invited to a one-on-one. Oh, this is the second time. This is the second time I've been invited to a one-on-one chat like this. So yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. This means a lot.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. It's an honor for me to have you on the channel. You've been on my channel before, but with a group of people. So this is our first time having the chance to just talk one-on-one, talk about fantasy and whatever else comes up here today. So I am really thrilled to be able to talk to you, my friend.
Yeah, same here, same here.
Yeah, cool. Well, so I would like to get a sense of, I've heard the story, but it's a nice story, and I'd like you to tell it, if you don't mind, about how you got into fantasy in the first place, because it's a neat story. And I think we all sort of have that special series or book that sparked our love for the genre, and that we just sort of I think we go through our lives trying to re-experience that joy, that bliss, that intensity, that wonderful feeling of being lost in a journey. And so what's your story? How did you get into fantasy?
So basically, I didn't start reading adult fantasy books until 2016.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So
pretty recent.
For those of you, it is still pretty recent, but because I've been reading a lot since then, people thought that I've been reading for a much longer time. But that's really not the case. Before I started reading in 2016, all I read was manga, and I still continue to read manga until today. Okay. But before then, the only novels I think I read when I was a child was Harry Potter. Yeah, Harry Potter, and then there was a wrinkle in time. Yeah, a wrinkle in time. Yeah, and then I can't remember what else, but there isn't much that really, like, I could say, like, sparked my love for reading fantasy. And then in 2016, I remember that I was feeling really down and I needed a new distraction, like a new hobby. And I was so immersed in Game of Thrones, right? The TV show. Yeah.
The TV show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The TV show. I was so immersed in the Game of Thrones. So, I fell to the marketing scheme. I searched what books to read if you love the Game of Thrones. And so many books, so many series popped up, like the Stormlight Archive, the Kingkiller Chronicle, which doesn't even make sense to me. But and then there's the First Law, and then there is Mistborn Trilogy, and there are so many. And obviously, I don't know anything about them. I don't know anything about them at all. So I choose kind of randomly because of the cover art of Mistborn, and the title of Mistborn just kind of, like, it caught my attention. Good so title. Mistborn is just, I mean, I play video games a lot, right? And there isn't a lot of video games that uses mist as like their power. That doesn't happen often. So I thought, oh, this sounds interesting. So yeah, I picked up Mistborn and I was hooked. I was really hooked by, let's just say that by the end of the first book, I was already so impressed, and I thought that, wow, this is what I wanted from reading. Yeah, this is what I wanted. I wanted to experience something like this, and then I keep on reading. I finished the third book, Hero of Ages, and then well, that's it. I will be reading so many more fantasy books. Yeah.
So that was the spark, the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that, I mean, I know that I'm so biased about this trilogy. I've said it so many times, but I cannot help it, right? I mean, this is like the series that sparked my love for reading adult fantasy. Even though I know that I've read a lot of other adult fantasy series that's better than this, but this will still remain the most special one to me.
Yeah. I've often said that about Brandon Sanderson, that I think we sort of owe him a little bit in the genre, because he brings a lot of new readers into the genre. and including you. So,
Yeah.
thank you, Brandon Sanderson, for bringing Petrik into fantasy, because he's become
Thank you.
a really important person for us in the genre. And as you said, you read a lot, and a lot of us are in awe of how we don't know how you do it, Petrik, how you read as many books as you do, and a wide ranging, types of books as well within the genre. You read a lot, more than anyone I know. I think you actually read a lot of self-published books, and you promote those self-published authors really well. So is that something that you just gradually got into, or you've always sort of wanted to help promote the self-published authors?
Oh, no. It's something that I gradually got into. I mean, I think just like a lot of people, and this is not a good thing actually, but well, there is a step to it. I mean, I was also very hesitant about self-published fantasy back then. Before I started reading about self-published fantasy, I always thought, well, self-published fantasy cannot be as good as traditionally published fantasy. That's my thought. Yeah. I mean, back then, self-published fantasy isn't as big as it is now, and I don't think it was as well produced as well. I don't think. Back in 2000, I think I read the first self-published fantasy in 2016, at the end of 2016, and yeah, it was a good novel, but that hasn't really made me think that, yep, this is as good as traditionally published fantasy. But after I got into, I don't know if you know this, it's called SPFBO.
Oh yes,
Do you know
Mark Lawrence is involved in that.
Yeah. So I became a judge in that competition. Back then, my blog was called Booknest. I joined this international blog called Booknest. So I became one of the judge there, and it's an experience. Yeah, because of that, it opened my eyes to a lot of things regarding self-published fantasy. And yeah, after I'm done with that competition, judging that competition, I became more diligent in searching for self-published fantasy. And as it turns out, there's a lot of amazing self-published fantasy, as good as traditionally published fantasy. And as we all know already, self-published fantasy always needs more exposure than traditionally published fantasy. So I always use some time, if I find something amazing, I always use it to, well, let people know about it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's something, and that's one way in which I've tried to emulate you. I started to do more reviews of self-published books, and I have actually a pile that I need to get to. I'm trying to get through my Malazan read here. We're at the end of that, so I'm trying to finish that first, but I do have a more self-published books to get to, and we'll talk about some of those in a bit. But I want to go backwards a little bit, because I don't think you became one of the judges for the SPFBO right overnight, right? I mean, you had to have a reputation before that. And I think, did you make your reputation on Goodreads? Is that sort of the platform where you really kind of became more well-known first as a fantasy reader and critic?
Yeah, it is on Goodreads, which I totally didn't expect that would happen. I mean, as I said, as I constantly said, I use Goodreads reviews as a way for me to practice my English writing skill, and also for me to convey my thoughts regarding a book. So basically, it's all just, well, self-improvement. But also, of course, I want to befriend a lot of other people who read fantasy book as well. Yeah. And because of that, I started befriending a lot of people, and then my reviews started reaching more and more people. And yeah, it just kind of, after being so consistent, I guess, in producing reviews, I guess it just kind of blew up. Eventually, kind of blew up.
Yeah, that's amazing. I personally think of you as the king of Goodreads. So
thank you.
But I don't actually. I'm not active on Goodreads myself, and the only reason is I'm just too busy. I have my job, and I have other stuff going on, and YouTube is about as much as I can handle. I as you know, I sort of putter around a little bit on Twitter, but it seems like a valuable community for fantasy fans, for sure, the Goodreads community. So you have a lot of followers there. Do you mind if I ask you how many people are following you right now on Goodreads?
I think on Goodreads right now it's about 35,000. Yeah.
Yeah.
35,000. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I think that's the number. I didn't check it yet.
You checked recently? Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really fantastic. And so what made you then, I mean, because you established yourself on Goodreads, you have a lot of followers there and a lot of people who listen to your thoughts on, because you write thoughtful reviews, and you have a lot of people who want to know your opinions on various books and pick up books based on that. So that you had all that. What made you want to start a YouTube channel then? Why did you come over to this platform?
Yeah, so this one took me a lot of years before I finally decided to start my own YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the reason I'm not gonna lie is actually pandemic.
Wow.
Because I needed something like, I don't know, I want to try something new, right?
Okay.
But before I started my YouTube channel, it actually took 6 months. Yeah, it actually took six months of self-contemplation. I remember I kept on talking to Jimmy
Uh,
Fantasy Network.
yeah.
Yeah, I kept on talking to him. Man, what do I do with this? I'm so not ready about this. And he kept on supporting me. He kept on saying that take your time. You will be ready when you feel like it's ready. And you know what? After 6 months of thinking about it, I decided to just go with it. And it's kind of like a similar reason to why I started Goodreads. If Goodreads is for me to start practicing my writing skill, well, this is for me to start using my English speaking skill.
Yeah.
Because if I don't have a YouTube channel, my English speaking skill is close to useless. It's not being used in real life for me.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
You're not
so
using English in your daily life where you live.
now very rare, very rare.
Okay. Huh.
Yeah. So this is just kind of like a way for me to practice and also maybe to improve my confidence. At least now I don't hate my own voice too much now.
Oh, you have a great voice, actually. You have a nice voice.
Thank you.
Good bass voice there, I think. But that's a great reason to be here, I think. And of course, we're all lucky
Yeah.
because you're here for
Uh,
that reason. And I think it's fair to say that you've become a really important part of the community here on BookTube as well. So how would you compare then, now that you're kind of a pro at both Goodreads and YouTube? So
I'm not a pro at booktubing.
well, I think your subscribers would beg to differ, right? So, I mean, you've been doing very well. Your channel grew up really fast, and thank you to Jimmy, by the way, for being that person who helped to encourage you. And
Yeah.
he's a great guy. I think he's a
Yeah.
strangely modest, but he's so good at this. I think he has a really good way of building a rapport with people, and also
Yeah.
just he seems very comfortable talking and building this community up. But I'm glad he did that. So, but
Yeah.
how would you compare the two platforms, Goodreads and BookTube, in terms of I'm sure they both have their strengths. So what's great about Goodreads and what's great about BookTube?
I would say that right now, for me, the best thing about Goodreads, I mean, maybe this is because I've written reviews for a much longer time than booktubing, is that writing reviews is much more easier for me to do than recording a YouTube video. Because
Yeah.
every time I record a YouTube video, let's say that I post something like a 15-minute video, that actually took me like many hours of editing, many hours.
Yeah.
I I stumbled a lot when I speak, when a camera is facing me. I
Yeah.
stumbled a lot. So yeah, that's probably the most difficult thing about booktube for me. So on the matter of let's say posting stuff, Goodreads is definitely much more easier for me. And also I think when it comes to bringing exposure to books, I'm still probably bigger on Goodreads than on BookTube. So if I want something, let's say an underrated books that I absolutely love, I want it to shine more, I want more people to know about it, I definitely have to post it on Goodreads.
Oh,
Definitely.
okay.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Huh.
that's I think my analysis so far, because sometimes for example, yeah, the most recent one is Illborn. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just finished Illborn by Daniel T. Jackson, right?
Right.
So on Goodreads, you can actually check when how many people add your book to their TBR. Yeah, you
Oh,
can actually check.
oh, I didn't
Yeah.
know that. Huh.
So yeah, so apparently after I posted my review, but also I also posted my review on BookTube as well. So maybe that's why the number is higher.
Hmm.
But after I posted my review for Illborn, Daniel the author told me that about 1,000 people added the book to their TBR. Yeah,
Wow, that's
yeah. So
amazing.
that's
Huh.
yeah. So yeah, I'm
So
happy
when
when
is
I
he
get.
sending you? When is he sending you the royalty?
Hopefully.
Yeah, no, but that's
Yeah,
tremendous. So that's a really positive thing. That's a wonderful
yeah,
thing. That and so you feel like your impact is still greater on Goodreads, though, even though BookTube might be supplementing it, I guess. But you feel like
yeah,
you have a bigger
definitely.
voice still on Goodreads, and more people will
Yeah.
actually adopt a book. You think as a result of your Goodreads activity?
But I think although that may be true, but also this is because I cannot gauge because I cannot like gauge from BookTube, right? Because on Goodreads we can actually check that so many people, so this number of people added this book to their TBR because of my review. But
Yeah,
on BookTube I cannot check anything like that, so I
right,
cannot
right.
predict that. So maybe I am more influential on BookTube, but I cannot know.
Well, I have a feeling you're pretty influential on BookTube, in our corner of BookTube at least.
Thank
And
you.
and as I said before, I think it's really wonderful how you use that influence to shine a light on a lot of self-published, but also indie press fantasy, and using that platform, using that voice that you've built for yourself to help out authors who otherwise wouldn't have any way of getting their books out there, right? So that's a really important thing.
Yeah.
And like I said before, I've tried to start to emulate that a little bit with my channel. I've reviewed a few self-published books, and I've had the authors come on my channel and had a chat with them, which is always fun to talk to authors, isn't it? Don't you think?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I think you're doing a great stuff with your channel as well. You just got nominated on Reddit, right?
Yeah, it was really quite an honor to be nominated for a Stabby
Yeah,
by
Stabby, yeah.
on Reddit, along with, by the way, so the video that was nominated was me and AP Canavan, who his channel is A Critical
Okay.
Dragon. Yeah, so the two of us together were nominated. And also for the same award, which was the best related work, there also was Jimmy was nominated,
Yeah.
and so was Alan from the Library of
Yeah.
Alexandria. So yeah, it was really fun. I was like, wow, this is really cool. There was
Yeah.
I forget the name of the channel. It's a very big channel with like 1.5 million subscribers that actually won the award.
Oh, oh, that's a Critical Role. Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
That
yes,
that
they
is
do.
so big.
I had
Yeah,
never
yeah,
heard of
yeah.
it before, but they do role playing stuff on there, I
Hmm.
guess. It seems like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
actually went and looked at it. I thought, well, let's see what this is. My competition, right? So I went and checked out their channel, and it's really slick. I mean, it looks like
Yeah,
high production value there, and it looks like they do
yeah.
some really great work. So I learned about Critical Role by also being nominated for this. But it was just fun, to have that.
Yeah.
It feels like it's an honor, and it feels like, okay, people even outside of BookTube are noticing what we're doing here, because as you know, we put a lot of hours into this stuff. You mentioned
Yeah.
how long it takes you to edit a video. I mean, I don't know if you've probably gotten
Yeah.
faster now. It's probably easier for you now than when you started, but still,
Oh,
um,
yeah.
how much time would you guess you put into one video? And it could be hours and hours. I mean, not to mention the time you spend reading the book and all that stuff.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a
Mhm.
ton of time. And we put ads on our videos, and I guess you can get sponsors and stuff like that, or some people have a Patreon and all that, but you don't make a ton of money doing this. It's a
Yeah.
it's a labor of love, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess a lot of, some other very big booktubers do make a lot of money, but you have to be very popular for it to happen.
Yeah, I would think that. I guess it varies depending on what revenue streams you have, but I would think to really make a living from it, I think you need probably around 100,000 subscribers or so. That'd be my guess. I don't know what you think, but you think?
I think so. I think I don't know. I'm probably predicting here, but I think 100,000 subs could earn you probably around 3,000 per month, probably.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
so you wouldn't be buying a mansion anytime soon. It wouldn't be a handsome living.
But I don't know. That's my prediction. Maybe one day if I get to 100,000, I'll let you know.
Okay, you tell me. You tell me, because you're definitely going to get there before I am. So, yeah. But yeah, no.
But
go ahead.
No, but I was thinking about the matter of influence, right? Like the stuff that we did on our BookTube. Like you said, this takes a lot of time, but sometimes, like for example, for reviews is one of the hardest thing because we have to read and we have to analyze, but it is often the worst performing videos.
Yeah. Oh, it's often. It is. I mean, other than I do some poetry videos, and those are the worst performing, but the reviews are the second worst. Yeah. I mean, depending though, and sometimes if it's a new release or something like that, a review will get more views. But generally speaking, if my review gets 1,000 views, that's like pretty good. It's like, okay, good. For especially books that are not as well known. Unfortunately, we're still fighting against that. Even when I do a self-published book, I don't get very many views on that. I really don't. If I do even a less known or a book that's not hot right now, like I said, I feel good if I get 1,000 views on it. But I'm still going to do that because I feel like, one, you build credibility with reviews.
Yeah,
I feel like
agree.
If you have a channel and it's supposed to be about books and reviewing books, then you need to review books. You build credibility by having those reviews, and however you approach your reviews, that's fine. However you do that is, but I think that's really important. Plus, I guess there's a long-term value to reviewing, to your videos that are reviews, right? I mean, I'm going to watch your review of a book that I'm interested in reading. Maybe it's 2 years after you posted the video, but I'm going to watch that because I want to know what Petrik thinks about this book. Whereas I'm not probably going to watch a tag that you did 2 years ago. I'm not going to watch a book haul that you did 2 years ago. I'm not going to watch a lot of things that you did 2 years ago. But that review, that remains important because you're giving me information about the book that I'm interested in. So did Petrik like this? If he liked it, maybe I'll check it out. Or what did he get out of it? Even for me, I'm more interested even in your analysis, what did you think of the characters? What did you think of the world building? What did you think of the themes in there and all that? So, and I get to appreciate the book more by learning from your reactions to those things, right? So that's why reviews are important, right?
Yeah, you actually make a really good point about this. I didn't think about it that way. Yeah, that's actually correct.
I think so. I mean, even if there weren't a more sort of long-term value to the reviews, I would still do them because I feel like they're the foundation of my channel. And I do other things too. I actually enjoy the social aspects of it. So for me, I don't know. You tell me what you think. And now that I've been doing this for 2 years, and I knew nothing about BookTube beforehand. I actually knew nothing. I went into this thinking that I was going to do something that no one else was doing by talking about fantasy on YouTube. So I was really disabused of that notion. But I've discovered in this time that about a third of what goes on here on BookTube for me, at least according to my perception, is about reviewing books, analyzing books, talking about the books, getting into the book, conversations, discussions, all that. That's about 1/3 of the activity. Another third or so is more about book collecting. It's more about, like book haul videos and that sort of thing. It's about, and people are passionate about, many people are passionate about collecting books. You have some very beautiful books in your collection. So, bookshelf tours and just, TBRs are a little bit like that, I think, although you're telling people what you're going to read. But basically, people like to talk about just collecting books and different editions of books and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then a third of it is really very social. It's about bonding with people with similar passions, right? You have that part of BookTube, which is, I think that's what the tag videos are really about. They're about getting to know people and having fun and having some dialogue with people. And so there's that social aspect. So that's about a third of it too. What do you think of that analysis?
I think that's more or less correct. Although I would say, I never do any tag. I'm so sorry for that.
I know, because I've tagged you, I think, like at least 3 times. But you know what? It's okay because you don't have to do tags. I think you should do on BookTube what you like to do, what makes sense to you. And if you don't do tags, that's fine. I think Jimmy doesn't do tags either. So that's perfectly fine. I personally, I don't do book hauls because I'm not that interested in that. But and you don't do tags. I do tags. I think it's kind of fun, and it can, you can do some funny things with it, and you can get to know people a little. But you shouldn't do something here that isn't what you want to do on BookTube, right? So in other words, don't apologize because you didn't do it. So.
Yeah, thank you. Also regarding book haul, it is very surprising to me because I just recently learned, probably a few months ago, I guess, but I just learned that people love watching book haul videos. I actually didn't know that when I started. When I started BookTube, I didn't know that people love watching book haul. And then eventually people start mentioning, hey, when will you do a book haul video? And then I thought, do you guys love watching book haul? So I included it from now on.
No, it's, if that's what your viewers want, I think it's not a bad idea. I have a pretty ragged book collection. I did a library tour, a bookshelf tour. I watched that.
So
I'm not a collector. I never have been. And it's just something that I think because a lot of the books that I own, I got when I was a graduate student and I was very poor. So I had to buy the used versions. And so I never really was a collector where I had to get nice editions of everything, matching and everything. So that's not really where I started out. Although I've been buying new books because I want to support the authors since I started my channel. So that's made me into a little bit more of a collector. But I have to admit that I can appreciate a beautiful edition of a book. I mean, there are some really nice. You have some good ones, I think, some beautiful editions. What are some of your favorite editions of whatever books you have? Like if you, I know you got.
I think easily the best one definitely are the one that you all got me. Book of the New Sun. That is the most beautiful book that I have. The most beautiful one. And other than that, probably the Dragon Steel edition of Brandon Sanderson's books. Those are the most beautiful books that I have right now.
It was fun to watch you open the box and the plastic wrap, and you're very very gentle about opening it. That was
nice. I suck at doing unboxing, but you know what? I think it's kind of fun to do.
I think what it is people watching you almost feel like they're the ones opening that book, It's almost like when you're watching it, I mean, it's not quite, but it's like when you're reading a book and you're going along with the character on a journey. It's people who like you and they feel good about you getting this beautiful thing. And they almost feel like they're the ones who are opening it and experiencing the beauty of that book. So I think maybe that's part of it. Do you think?
Yeah, I guess that's true. My viewers are, honestly, my viewers, majority of them are very nice people.
Oh yeah.
I mean, sometimes, obviously, sometimes there are a few odd comment here and there, but the majority of them are very, very nice.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. This is the internet, and still,
Yeah,
like 99.9% of the people are really very kind and
yeah.
generous. And I just feel like book lovers tend to be nice people. I don't know. Maybe I'm biased. Right?
Yeah, I'm biased as well about this.
Yeah. So
But of course, sorry.
no, go ahead.
Yeah, but of course, sometimes there is the downside to this one, like maybe in a fandom. Yeah, when a
Uh-huh.
fandom gets too big, yeah, wow, it can get very, very hot.
This is true. Yeah, this is true. So
Yeah,
I do think that sometimes people, if you say something negative about their favorite series, even
yeah,
if you said like 9 positive things and then you say one negative thing, one
yeah,
negative thing, sometimes that's all you'll hear about from the really diehard fans is like, how can you think that this is not a, uh, whatever it is. I'm almost afraid to
yeah,
give an example, but like
yeah,
I
yeah,
have
yeah.
I'll give an example from me. So I read the Wheel of Time series, and I think very highly of it. I think it's a great series for the most part. I had some things with it, like I don't think the romances in there are very well done.
Oh no, they're
For
awful.
example.
They're awful.
Okay, you think they're awful. So yeah, I mean, so I
Yeah.
just said that on, and this is a video that literally says why Wheel of Time is among the best fantasy, right? So I'm saying all
Ah.
these nice things about it, but some people just hear, I don't think the romances are very good, and that's what they'll comment on. They're
Hmm.
angry and they're, how can you think this, blah blah blah, and right? That's all I hear. So
Yeah, yeah,
there is that. I mean, that happens. But I think that what happens there is it's people just identify so strongly with it's their baby almost. It's them, it's like you're insulting them personally if you say
yeah,
something negative about their favorite series or something, I guess, right? Is that what it is?
yeah. I think so, but sometimes we all really need to remember that this is just another person's opinion.
Exactly.
It doesn't change your opinion or what you experience from the books.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah, it's so weird.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think every single fandom has that, though. You'll have people wherever they're coming from, whether it's some kind of insecurity or whatever it might be, who just cannot hear anything negative about
Yeah.
their favorites. So maybe it's not a good space for people who are too sensitive about things like that.
Yeah, maybe.
But coming from a more academic background, I'm used to hearing analysis that can be both positive and negative, and will pinpoint the things that are, I mean, there is no author on earth who is perfect, right? You
Yeah.
can always
Yeah.
say something about a book that is negative if you want to. I mean, there's just no author who does everything right all the time. So
Exactly.
but that's I guess we just sort of learn how to handle that, and you know
Yeah. We just have to learn how to ignore those comments.
yeah. Yeah. But we're very lucky because I feel like it's a really amazing time for the
Mm.
fantasy genre, in that we
Oh yeah.
have more and more new authors, lots of diversity in the genre these days, which is fantastic to me. I feel like we're in almost like we could look back on this time as sort of a golden age for the fantasy genre because of how
I
many,
agree.
it's really becoming interesting and diverse. And there's so many different authors. I know there's one that you've been talking about a lot recently that I want to read, the Greenbone Saga. Um,
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Amazing.
that's an example of I think it's fair to say that there was nothing like that like 30 years ago. Not that I know of, right? Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so it's wonderful for nothing. Maybe I just am ignorant, but I feel like we have lots more stuff like that nowadays, and that it's really enriching. And I'm excited. I'm excited to read all these new authors and find out, seeing fantasy in various in settings inspired by different parts of the world and all of that, and taking fantasy in new directions. It's pretty exciting to me.
Yeah, and I think maybe I remember that some people told me that about 20 or 30 years ago that there isn't a lot of option in fantasy genre. There isn't a lot of option. This is not my words. I don't know anything about those period of time because I haven't read fantasy yet. Yeah, but right now I think the problem is that there is so many books that we want to read. There's so many
Yeah.
options. Just in the fantasy genre alone, there is already so many books. Yeah,
Yep.
that looks interesting. And so yeah, I agree with you that this is the golden age of fantasy right now. We have the classic, we have the modern, and all of them are great. We have so many
Yeah.
options.
So many, and I sometimes I feel bad because there are some classics that I want to cover on my channel, and I haven't
Ah, yeah.
gotten to yet. There's some that I haven't read even before, and then there are some that I have read, but I haven't talked much about Tolkien on my channel, and he was like he was my Mistborn. Lord of the Rings was, for you had Mistborn. Lord of the Rings was that for me. It was what really sparked my
Ah,
love of the genre. And I've only done a few Tolkien related videos. So I'll do a Lord of the Rings reread pretty soon, I think, on the channel. But it's just, there's so much stuff. The problem is, how can I justify rereading stuff when I have so many
yeah,
new
yeah.
things I want to get to as well? So it's just, there's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff. Is that something you'd like to do, is go back and read more of the classics in the genre?
Classic is something that I still definitely need to read a lot more because I haven't read a lot of, to be precise, pre the year 2000. Yeah, pre the year 2000. Most of the fantasy books that I read are after the year 2000 or late 90s. Yeah, late 90s.
Okay.
Those and after that are, well, the fantasy books that I read are published during that year. But before 1990, yeah, those are, I don't think I've read many. I don't think I've even read 10. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, thinking about it, I just finished Lord of the Rings, yeah, the books about three
Okay.
years ago. Yeah,
Okay.
it's still pretty new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a whole history of the genre that, I mean, it goes way back. It's even, of course, there's fantasy before Tolkien, which not
Yeah.
many people read, but I know I wrote my PhD dissertation on a chap named William Morris, who was,
Okay.
yeah, he was an English guy who, in the 1890s, wrote what we would call fantasy, and back then
Ah.
they were called prose romances, but essentially they were fantasy. And Tolkien was very much inspired by William Morris. If you can see that,
Ah.
Tolkien talks about him in his letters, and he wanted to do something similar to what William Morris did. And William Morris had poems in his fantasy, which is maybe part of the reason why Tolkien does too. But
Ah, no wonder.
yeah, well, I mean, it was a common thing in those days to
Yeah.
have verse mixed in with the prose. And I'm one of those weirdos who still likes poems inside fantasy books. A lot of people just skip them, I know, but um,
I mean, well, I read through the poems, but that doesn't mean that I understand all of them.
yeah. So you at least read them though. You take a stab at it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I
I
think
think there's a lot of deep meaning in it.
there can be, yeah. I mean, I think
Yeah.
to really get to the heart of the poem, you have to read it probably 3, 4, 5 times just
Mhm.
to get started. It's not like reading prose. You have to sort of
Yeah.
take some deep breaths, and it's almost like you're meditating. You have to approach it differently. You're not reading it just to get through it. I think a lot of times when we're reading, we're just trying to get through the plot, right? We're not.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. So it's a different exercise. If you really want to get everything you can out of the poems, you have to really allow yourself to sort of steep in them. You have to just, soak it in and make it into more of a meditation. So, but
And I do remember that I struggled a lot reading The Lord of the Rings before 2016. I love the movie. I love the movie so much. I watched it so many times.
uh,
I lost count so many times. So I thought, you know what? I would try the books. I would try the books. And then every time, and I think this will sound controversial, every time I reach that Tom Bombadil. Every time I reach that part, I gave up. I always gave up at that part.
So Tom Bombadil broke you. Okay.
Yeah, always, always. I mean, like, what is this?
Yeah. That's so funny. I mean, I was one of the hardcore Tolkien fans who, when the movies came out in 2000, 2001, somewhere, I think 2000. Is that right? Yeah, with the first movie, The Fellowship of the Ring. I think it was 2000.
Was it 2000? Yeah, I think it was 2000. Yeah. Or
Whenever,
1999. Yeah, I forgot.
whenever it was, I was one of those real dedicated Tolkien fans who was scared because I thought, oh my God, what are they going to do to my baby? What are they going to do to my favorite, story of all time?
Yeah.
So I was very scared. And when I watched the film for the first time, within 5 minutes, I was like, oh, they did it. They got it. I felt like, okay, I'm in the Shire. It was really magic. It was really wonderful. And Fellowship of the Ring actually still is my favorite of the three films. But
okay.
I thought, okay, yeah, they really, these are fans of the book who are really trying to do it. And I didn't mind too much that Tom Bombadil didn't appear in the film because I get that you're adapting this story to a different medium and you have to tell it differently. It's not the same story when you adapt something.
Yeah.
So I accepted those things. I accepted that they took out the scouring in the Shire at the end. I accepted some of the changes I wouldn't have made myself, some of the tweaks, but I think I know where they were coming from most of the time. And the overall effect was just fantastic. I think that it was good for the books that the films were made. That's not a very controversial thing. I mean, I believe that Tolkien would still be vastly important, but that these films did bring a lot of new people to the story. And that's a win as well. Even if you're a diehard Tolkien fan and you hate the films, I think you'd have to admit that at least the films did bring some new readers to the books.
Oh, a lot of new readers. A lot of new readers. And, I didn't, I have to be honest that I didn't actually fully understand the genius of Tolkien until I actually read anything that's not Lord of the Rings, like the Silmarillion, Children of Hurin, and all that. And after that, I was just, wow, there's so much vision behind this. This is insane. So much vision.
That is so true. I mean, his influence has been so tremendous. Now, it's interesting because I did say that I believe the films were a net gain for the books, but there is also, I think your experience speaks to this, the fact that the films might have set up an expectation among people who are not familiar with the books, that they would be probably faster paced than they would experience reading the books. And times have changed, tastes have changed. So books from 50, 60 years ago have a lot more exposition. They have a lot more description. They're just slower paced for the most part, compared to especially genre fiction today. And fantasy we have shorter chapters, we have more action, more dialogue, and a lot of writers just totally stay away from exposition and have minimal description in their books. And that's just the way that seems to be. I think that's a lot of that is because of the influence of the screen, because of movies and television. I don't know what you think about that, but
I do think that's true because let's just say that this is not an offensive comment to people, but because of Netflix and how fast social media is changing people right now, people tend to have a shorter attention span, and sometimes that happens to me too. Sometimes that happens to me too, and I think that's also why a lot of exposition are being thrown away. But you know what? Although exposition can be a bit of a chore sometimes, but when it's done right, this is the kind of story that sticks. But I think that's my opinion. When you have something that's so detailed, you will remember so many of it when you finished it. I mean, just for example, The Wheel of Time. I already talked about how much I dislike the Shadow Rising That's like the fourth book in the series.
Yeah.
I mentioned it so many times, but so that's like almost 3 years ago, and I still can't stop thinking about the series, even though I dislike the fourth book so much, and I ended up continuing it, and somehow I enjoyed the Fires of Heaven. So yeah, that's kind of, there's a benefit from that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting because we think about these things and things come and go, but it feels like there's a trend here. I believe that exposition serves a purpose. It is something that can be, if handled well. There are more graceful ways to incorporate it into your writing. But even the fact that most of the time nowadays people just call it info dumping, which is very negative, right? That has a negative connotation. You say info dumping, it's bad. And it can be done badly, of course. Dialogue can be done badly. Action can be done badly. Everything can be done badly. And so when exposition is done badly, it's boring and it distracts. It takes away the momentum of the plot. But there are certainly ways, I think, to incorporate it into the writing where it's not obtrusive, where and I think it's something that where when I grew up reading Tolkien, my idea of fantasy was you have to have this really established world, right? You have to do this world building. You have to take the time and talk about the forests and the mountains and the trees and the lakes and the rivers. And I love his landscape descriptions. But nowadays, I mean, it's probably fair to say that Tolkien, if somebody submitted a manuscript like Lord of the Rings today, it would not be published because it's too much description and too much exposition. And I love when Tolkien gives us glimpses of the mythology and the history of Middle Earth. That stuff I love just being immersed in that. I feel like that's part of the immersion. But a lot of people, and this is because of the way, things have evolved, a lot of people just get bored by that. And they just want, where's the story? Where's the plot? Where's the action?
Yeah. I think it all depends on execution. Anything can be done, but with or without exposition. I mean, like John Gwynne. John Gwynne used very minimal description, and his books, in my opinion, work absolutely well.
Yeah, that's true. His books, I would say, are a good example, even though sometimes I feel like they're also a good example of a mix between classical and modern fantasy. In that respect, you're absolutely right. He's much more modern, where he has very short chapters, and it's really a lot of action and dialogue and minimal exposition and not much description as well. Just he's kind of like very fast paced, which is something that a lot of readers enjoy. I do think that just to go on the other end, let's say we've been talking about Tolkien, so let's use a different example. Like you're a fan also of the Malazan series, the Malazan. Steven Erikson is a writer who's, I think, really more on the other end for a modern writer, where he'll do a lot more I think, sometimes people will call it philosophy even, where he's talking, we get longer monologues and we get these, for me, incredible descriptions in there, and he's a good example of what you can achieve actually by skillfully including, you don't even notice that it's exposition, I think, a lot of the time. But yeah, he's an author, and it's a different experience, isn't it? I mean, we have a genre where you have an array of stories, and some of them are just fun and entertaining, and we love to just get through them and feel enthusiastic, and we cheer when the cavalry comes and everything else. And then there are others that are just more of an experience that you have to put more time into. And I think there's room for all of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I love all of them. I know that sometimes there are readers that prefer, let's say, that I just want to read classic fantasy, I hate modern fantasy, and then there are the other way, like the one that say that I love modern fantasy, I hate classic fantasy. But I think if we can appreciate both of them and love both of them, that's even more fun.
I agree. I think there's just lots of room. A good example of, I think, a book that you got me to read and is Nicholas Lietzau's Dreams of the Dying.
Yeah.
That's a book that, you know, if you just describe it to many people, they'll say, wow, that sounds boring, you know, because it's not constant action, right? But it's a beautiful book, and it's a wonderful book because there is action in there too, but a lot of it, the best parts of it are when it's doing the work of thinking about very important themes. And he tackles, for example, the theme of depression in there in a way that I've never seen done anywhere else. And so I think it's a really important, beautiful book within our genre, and it does some really amazing things. But it's not a book that goes bang, 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 bang. You know, it's something you have to allow yourself to experience what he's trying to do there, I think. And that's not always, I guess and it's fine too, if you're not, that's not what you want, you know, if you're a reader who just wants to be entertained and you know, have a lot more action, that's fine. But I think we need to recognize the value of things like that, where he's really doing some important things. And I think that a lot of people read that book and find it extremely helpful. If there's somebody who's been wrestling with depression, or knows someone who's been wrestling with depression, and you get to get some insights about it, and that could be really helpful for people.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree on this. And reading that book, a lot of the passages there just really hit me. It's very emotional sometimes because, as you said, it's not an action-packed book. Everything about it, everything that's very good about it is having to do with psychological aspect of the characters, and that's why I really love the book Dreams of the Dying.
Yeah, it's a good one. I'm so glad you got me to read it, and I also got a chance to talk with Nicholas about the book, and that was really fun too.
I saw that. That's so cool.
He's a very nice young man. It was a really fun experience. I hope to do more of that too as I get back into my sort of more normal schedule. But right now, I'm just trying to get through the last of the Malazan stuff.
How far are you? How far are you in the Malazan read?
Yeah, so in the reread of the Malazan Book of the Fallen, I'm at the end of Dust of Dreams. So the 9th book.
Almost done.
Yeah, just about there. And then with Ian Esselmont's series, which I know you're not reading,
I haven't read it.
Yeah, I love it. For me, especially the 3rd and the 4th book and the 5th book so far have been fantastic. And I love the first one too. The first one is a bit of it's a little gem actually. We have not read the last book, A Sail, which is the only Malazan book actually that I had not read yet, because the Malazan Book of the Fallen is a reread for me. So I read everything else published by Erickson and Esselmont at this point, except for A Sail. And we're going to finish with that because it is sort of it happens after the Crippled God. So we're going to finish with The Sail.
And the God is not willing. It happens after A Sail and the Crippled God, right?
Yeah, that's right. It happens after all that. So it's like a decade after the end of the Crippled God or so, I think, which is a great book, by the way. I guess you haven't read The God is Not Willing yet?
I literally just got the book today.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I'm talking about it.
Oh, neat. Yeah. So I read it last November when it was published here in the North, or in the United States, because it came out much earlier in Europe and elsewhere. But it was great. We did a non-spoiler talk on it on my channel, and then we did a spoiler talk on AP's channel on A Critical Dragon. And then we had a talk with Steven Erickson on it, and which is also on A Critical Dragon, which was really cool. I would recommend that highly, because it's fun to hear what he has to say about the book too.
Okay.
Yeah, but after
I still have to read it. Yeah, I still have to read it first. Do you think I should reread House of Chains?
I don't think you need to. It's not like there's super details that you have to like. No, I would even say that someone who has not read the Malazan Book of the Fallen could read this book. Absolutely.
Wow, really?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually think that. I used to, at first I thought, well, maybe you wouldn't want to because you'd get spoiled about a certain character's death.
Yeah.
But I don't think it matters actually that much to me. I really don't think so. I think it could be a really, and here's why, because I think The God Is Not Willing could be a really great introduction to Steven Erikson as a writer and to the Malazan world, because it's similar to the books in the Malazan Book of the Fallen, but it's shorter. And I think a lot of people,
it is short. It is short.
yeah, for an Erikson book, it's it's very short. And that's just what he wanted to do this time, and it worked really well. But it still has a lot of the same things that he does in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. So he thinks about the same themes. He just does it a little more economically, I would say. But the same type of action, in which he's brilliant at writing. And you get a taste of Steven Erikson as a writer from The God Is Not Willing, and it introduces you to the Malazan world at a slightly later stage. I think it's worth it for people who are kind of on the fence maybe about the Malazan Book of the Fallen. Read The God Is Not Willing, and that'll probably help you decide if you like this type of writing or not.
That's also understandable, because especially these days, every time someone mentions I want to tackle Malazan, they always felt too intimidated, right?
Yeah.
So exactly. I think maybe you're right. Maybe this could be something that brings them to try more of the Malazan books after they finish The God Is Not Willing.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I think it'll work.
Yeah.
And there is that sort of intimidation factor out there for the Malazan series, and that's understandable. It's a big series. There's a lot of characters, a lot of places. I was just in a chat with Steve from Steve Talks Books.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like you. You and Steve are the ones who actually do the most to promote self-published authors. I mean, Steve is like that. He's always interviewing self-published authors and indie press authors, and he does a really great job on his channel with that stuff. But he and a group of booktubers have started the Malazan Book of the Fallen, and they invited me to join them for the chat on Gardens of the Moon. And I think you get a sense pretty quickly that a lot of them were reluctant to start the series because of exactly what you said. There's this intimidation. Everyone says it's so complicated and difficult. And the thing is, I think a lot of it is about expectations. If you're expecting the normal fantasy, the typical fantasy where you have a hero and you have the group of protagonists, and you follow them along on this journey, and they save the world, and you know how that goes, right? That's not what it is, and sometimes I think people are like, wait, where's the hero? Who am I supposed to be rooting for here? And Erikson's doing something very different, right?
When I first read Dead House Gates, I was shocked. Where is this? Why are we moving to other places with so many other characters?
Where did Anamander Rake go?
But it all worked out. It really worked out. By the time we reached book 6, the Bone Hunters, mind blown. I was mind blown.
It's amazing stuff. So, well, what else are you reading these days that I should be looking at? Any great series you encourage me to look at?
Right now, I'm actually reading a classic. And it's funny that you mentioned about a long chapter, because this book has a very long chapter. I'm reading Hyperion.
Oh, Dan Simmons. Yeah.
Oh my God. There's only a 6th chapter on the book.
And it's a big book.
So how long is this chapter? When I was reading. But it is really good so far. I'm almost done with Hyperion. It's incredible.
I mean, it is classic in the sense that it has long chapters, a thick book, but the guy was incredibly ahead of his time, I think, in writing that book. I read it probably 20 years ago, so my memory's a little fuzzy, but I will never forget the Shrike. That's just something. You don't, it's like lodged in my nightmares, that thing is a very powerful entity.
terrifying. It's terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think he just in terms of what he's doing there, in terms of the science fiction of it, he was way ahead of his time. It's amazing. That book was written in the 80s.
I think 80s. Yeah, I think it was in the 80s.
Yeah, and he's talking like AI stuff that most of people weren't catching up to until the 2000s, I think, right?
Yeah, I know. Some of the passage that I read made me really think, wow, this was written in the 80s. It's like he's predicting the future or something.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible. I have to reread it someday because it's been a while. I think I read only 2 of the books it's called the Hyperion Cantos, right?
Yeah. There are 4 books.
Yeah. Okay.
Fall of Hyperion, and then Endymion, and then Fall of Endymion.
Okay. Yeah. I think I only read the first 2. I remember there's a lot in there about the poet Keats. And that's
yeah. You know, I actually don't know about Keats, so I have to research about him after I read the book.
Oh yeah, well he was a early kind of 19th century English poet who only lived to be about 26 years old. He died of tuberculosis tragically. So it was a life and a career cut short. But he was considered a romantic poet. And he has written some really beautiful poems. He was incredibly talented for such a young person.
I see.
But you know, a lot of a lot of it is in the typical romantic sense. There's a lot of looking back at there's some medieval inspiration poems and a lot about nature and beauty and that sort of thing. And he had a thing about truth and beauty that he talked about a lot. But yeah, he was a very talented, wonderful poet. That's in a nutshell. But you should do the research on him too. Read some of his poems. There's some gorgeous ones.
Yeah, I think I kind of have to because they talk about him a lot in the book.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that part of it too. Yeah. Good stuff. So that's on the science fiction front. And what about fantasy? Yeah. Any great fantasy you've been reading lately?
I'll say that the most recent one is Illborn. That one is the one that impressed me the most right now. It's a self-published book, Illborn by Daniel T. Jackson. Amazing stuff. I really love this one. And also, I just got the Hunger of the Gods. Yeah.
Oh, you got it already. Wow.
Yeah. I just got the arc. So after I'm done with Hyperion, I will probably jump into that one immediately.
Oh, good for you. When is it? When is the publication date? Is it April? Or?
April.
Okay. Wow. And now I'm jealous. Yeah. You got the arc of God. Sweet.
You should ask Orbit. I think Orbit will send it to you. Okay. They sent Mike. Yeah, they sent Mike.
Okay. Well. Mike got it. Okay, cool. Yeah. So I'll have to ask them, I guess, and get an advance copy. We should get the band back together after we all read The Hunger of the Gods. Absolutely. Yeah, let's get the war band back together and talk about Hunger of the Gods, because I think I'm excited for it because Shadow of the Gods was my favorite Gwyn book so far. Because and I know that's not everyone shares that opinion because everybody has such love for the Faithful and the Fallen, and I get that. Yeah. But I love Icelandic Saga. And that book is so close to the feeling of an Icelandic saga that I was having a great time the whole time. So you can tell Gwyn has done his homework, you know. Yeah. He has a genuine passion for this mythology as well, Norse mythology. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. What he's done is it's really cool because you can tell it's inspired by that, but he's also done his own thing. And he's kind of added to it, and he's made it a Gwyn thing, right? So the Gwyn thing. Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to that. Even if I don't get the arc, I'm really looking forward to reading that and seeing where he's taking that story. The Bloodsworn trilogy, right? It's a trilogy. Yeah. Yeah, it is a trilogy. Yeah. So, but your favorite fantasy at the moment, is it Greenbone Saga? Is that kind of at the top of your list these days, or? I still haven't updated my
top list yet. Right now, my
Oh, so
top,
that's kind of
I
a
would say
secret
that.
then, right? Yeah, we don't want to.
No, but the last time I did, I always divide, right? I always divide the category from completed and ongoing series. I don't put them together in one category because I
That's
think,
smart. Yeah.
yeah, I just think of them on a different scale. Yeah, because this one is finished, this one is still unfinished, so the level of satisfaction is different for me anyway. So
Okay.
for completed series, I always mention that uh, the Faithful and the Fallen, the Banished Land Saga to be precise, and
Yeah.
then Malazan Book of the Fallen, and then I also mentioned The Realm of the Elderlings by
Oh
Robin
yeah.
Hobb. So those three are usually my top, and then now I will have to include the Greenbone Saga. So
Okay.
it's like that for me right now.
So you'll have to.
Yeah.
We'll keep the order top secret for now, though. We won't tell anyone.
I will have to think about it first for the order.
That's gonna be tough. Yeah.
Yeah,
Huh.
it's so tough. It's so tough.
Well, I'm gonna make a
But I
point.
love.
Go ahead.
But I really love the Green Bone Saga. I really hope you will give it a try. It's amazing in my opinion.
Yes, yeah, I do plan to try to get to it probably later this year. Based on, I was going to read it anyway, eventually, but based on what you've been
Mm.
saying, and it's been getting a lot of praise from people. So it seems like
Yeah,
something I'll have.
the last book is just masterpiece in my opinion. The final
Um,
book,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I know this will piss off Alan.
yeah, yeah. Wow, I've never read anything by Fonda Lee before, so it'll be
Okay.
another author for me to. I don't. Has she written other fantasy besides the Greenbone Saga?
No. Before the Green Bone Saga, she wrote three books. Those three are YA sci-fi. Yeah. So this is her first adult fantasy.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Good to know. Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting. There are some authors that I love their adult fantasy, but I haven't yet tried their YA stuff, like Joe Abercrombie, for example. And I know that it's called YA. It's marketed as YA. The what is
Yeah.
the half a prince or half a something or the what's that
Half a king. Half
half
a
a
king.
king? Yeah. Have
Yeah.
you read those Joe Abercrombie books yet?
No, but it is on my list for this year because those are the only Abercrombie's books that I haven't read. So yeah, might as well.
Here.
I
Yeah,
think you as well, right?
that's right. Yeah, I've read everything First Law. Everything First Law. In
Yeah.
fact, I read the first trilogy before I started my channel. I reread the first trilogy, and because I
Ah,
loved Abercrombie that much, it's a shame because if I had started the channel earlier, I could have done individual reviews of those books. But it's
yeah.
okay. I might go back and reread them again sometime. But I loved the latest trilogy. For me is Abercrombie's very best. I love the Age of Madness. I was already a big fan of Abercrombie anyway,
Yeah.
but to me, he's gone up a level as a writer in Age of Madness because of his
Mm.
incorporation of themes. And I also think it's fair to say his best female characters are in Age of Madness.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the first law, who's the female character? Only RD? RD
Well,
and
there's
oh my
Pharaoh.
god. Pharaoh, yeah, and Pharaoh. Only those two are memorable.
Yeah, and they're not even really main. Like Pharaoh is a POV character, but I think when we think of the original trilogy, we tend to think of Logan and Glokta and Jazal. You know,
Zizal.
yeah,
Yeah, agreed.
yeah. So, but Pharaoh is a POV character, and that often gets overlooked. And I don't think she's a good character. She's an Abercrombie character, so obviously he's never done a bad character in my opinion, but she's not his most memorable female character by a long shot.
Yeah, definitely not.
I thought in Best Served Cold, you know,
Monza?
yeah, gave us
Monza.
Monza, who is
Yeah.
a very solid character too. That is probably my favorite of the standalones.
Mm.
With the heroes just behind it, I think that's a great book too. But for
Yeah.
me, what you get in the Age of Madness trilogy is by far the best female characters. So And they're
Yeah,
they're the heart of it too, I think, really.
yeah. Sabine is awesome. I love
Sabine
Sabine.
is fantastic, and then Rika is
Yeah,
absolutely wonderful. I have a hard time deciding which one I like more, actually. But and they have
yeah.
really just fully fleshed out arcs in this trilogy. I think if anybody is the main character, and there is no main character, but if I were to vote for main character of Age of Madness, it would be Savine.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I think so. I agree with that.
yeah. So, but yeah, I will have to read his, because I know that he doesn't actually think of them as really YA. That's just sort of how they got marketed in some places, I guess.
Yeah. Uh, I saw this interview with Brandon Sanderson about the categorization of YA books, because we see a lot of people, we see a lot of books like this shouldn't be categorized as YA. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, there's a lot of books like that, right? But
yeah,
Brandon Sanderson mentioned that sometimes it's shelved as YA not because of the content, but sometimes there are chances where it's shelved as YA just because young adult reader might pick up the book, not because of the content, but just because this caught their interest.
huh.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I think that's something that made me really think.
yeah. I mean, it makes me
Yeah.
question if the label is actually very useful or not. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I feel like it's important not to put certain books in the hands of people under a certain age. You know, I wouldn't want
Yeah.
my, you know, if I had a 6-year-old, you know, or a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old to read certain more mature, like A Song of Ice and Fire. You know, I don't want my 10-year-old reading A Song
Yeah.
of Ice and Fire. There's just
Yeah.
stuff in there that happens that is not appropriate for a 10-year-old to be reading. But I do think that when this YA label gets put on a book, it might be because they feel like it's going to sell more copies. But there's
Mm.
also the negative side of that is people don't take it as seriously. And then
Agree.
I'm more of an adult fantasy reader. I do read YA labeled books sometimes, especially if I'm reading them with my daughters, but, you know, and I enjoy them. But I do think that sometimes it's more to do with the marketing than the actual, you know, what it is. And what does it even mean? You know,
Yeah, I don't.
I
It's
think
like
of,
grimdark. No one can agree on it
yeah, what's
anymore.
grimdark? Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
it's true that certain writers are more accessible. Let's put it that way, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel like the most useful way to think about these categories is complexity. So a 12-year-old is probably less likely to be prepared for a really complex series like the Malazan Book of the Fallen, for example, than something that's a little bit more straightforward and accessible. And that's not a value judgment. That's just, you know, that's the way it is. So and there are plenty of books I've read that I consider much more accessible that I would give to, you know, for example, my daughter has read Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn and Stormlight Archive when she was 12. And
Wow.
I mean, it was something that she could read. And it's, I think Sanderson does a good job of making his books accessible and making them,
Yeah.
you know, not difficult in the sense of you have to go back and read passages again. He does a lot of, you know, you know who the characters are, and you know,
Yeah.
you know, he does a good job with that and explaining things. And there's a place for that, and I think that's good,
Yeah.
you know. And in that sense, I would recommend those books to younger fantasy enthusiasts, right? And also because
Yeah.
of the content, yes, there's violence in Sanderson's books, but I feel like it's not the sort of violence that's going to traumatize a 12-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah, there isn't a lot of gore in Brandon Sanderson's books. I don't think there's any
Yeah.
gore. Oh, and there's only a bit in Mistborn, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. In comparison to many other adult fantasy books, it's very tame.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know what grimdark is, but we know that Brandon Sanderson does not write grimdark, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. He definitely does not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, good. Yeah. Well, anything else that you want to talk about or that you wanted to ask me about? Because, I mean, we touched on a few of our favorites so far, but you've already convinced me to try Greenbone Saga. Anything else you think I should definitely pick up?
Right now, there is this series that I'm in the middle of reading, but I will maybe recommend you in the future, but it is called The Echo Saga by Philip C. Quatrell. But
Okay.
I'm only 2 books in so far, but I think it has a lot of great potential. I'm going to find out eventually. I'm going to find out. But
Cool.
yeah, yeah.
Nice. All right.
What are you reading right now anyway?
So
Still
right now
Malazan?
I'm reading Dust of Dreams,
Oh
and
yeah.
we'll be finishing up Malazan, and then I have a few series in mind that I'm going to be reading with AP. One
Mhm.
is going to be David Gemmell. So we're talking about a little
Oh,
bit
nice.
more classic stuff, yeah. And
Yeah.
so we'll start with Legend, and then continue in the Drenai series. And have you read Gemmell yet?
I only read the Troy trilogy.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, by Gemmell. I think uh that's his final books. Yeah, Troy
Ah,
trilogy. Yeah,
okay.
before he
Yeah.
passed away.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. So, but
Yeah.
we're also going to pick up some Jenny Wirtz books.
Oh
So
yeah, absolutely. She's awesome. Jenny Woods is awesome.
yeah, so I don't
Yeah.
know for sure if we're starting with the trilogy that she co-wrote with Raymond Feist, The
Oh,
Empire, Daughter of the Empire is the first book. Either that, or we'll just go right into her Wars of
Wars
Light
of
and
Life.
Shadow. Yeah, have
I
have
still
you?
have I no, I haven't because well, that's intimidating as well.
It's a big one.
It's
Yeah, 11
yeah, it is a
books.
big one.
Yeah,
Yeah, 11 books. The final one is coming out either this year or next year.
yeah,
But if you haven't read Three for Empire, I do think you have to give it a try. It is
yeah.
incredible. I think that one is definitely a classic for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm excited because I think, based on what I hear, I feel like Jenny Wirtz has the potential to become a favorite author for me. So we'll see. But based on what I've heard from some of my viewers who have started to read her series, they really, what they say about it makes me think, I think I'm going to love this.
Yeah, same, same.
So that one's on the
And
horizon. And then we're going to do a Robin Hobb, Realm of the Elderlings is another one we're going to be reading. And that,
ah,
yeah, I'm going to go back and reread the Farseer trilogy.
Farsi.
Yeah, start from the beginning with AP, and we'll go through the whole thing. But we're going to take our time because we're going to do like one trilogy and then do some other stuff and come back and do the next trilogy and until we finish all the books. So
Yeah, that's one of the fun thing about the Realm of the Elderlings. I mean, well, the content is not fun. It is kind of depressing sometimes,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it never felt intimidating to me because there's it's divided into 5 series, right? So there's like a stopping point, and then you take a break, and then you read another series, you take a break. It's like there's a stopping point, unlike maybe like Malazan or the Wheel of Time. It feels like it's one continuous series, right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is nice. It makes you feel like you can break it up like that. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Daniel Abraham, The Long Price Quartet. I've read the first 2 books, and book 3 I'm going to read. Actually, as soon as I finish Dust of Dreams, I'm going to start on An Autumn War. You've read
Yeah,
Abraham,
that
right?
yeah, Another More is my favorite of the quartet. I think that one was
Okay.
the best one. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Everybody seems to think, except for one person so far, everyone has said either book 3 or book 4 is their favorite of the Long Price Quartet.
Uh,
So, yeah.
yeah, the Price of Spring. That's the title, right? The Price of Spring.
I
Yeah.
think so. It's the 4th book.
Yeah. The Price of Spring has a really satisfying ending. One of the most satisfying ending that I've read. Yeah.
Huh.
So it's not surprised that people, other readers prefer that to an Autumn War, but there's something about an Autumn War that just really clicked with me, and I think it is one of the most, how do I say this? A life-changing event in the series
Wow.
happened in that book. Yeah,
Huh.
in my yeah.
Wow.
Uh, going beyond that is spoiler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that sounds great. Yeah, it sounds great. I'm thoroughly impressed with Abraham's writing. I think he's very talented. Love his character work. And I said from the beginning, he reminds me of a little bit of Robin Hobb in that respect, because he does characters well, but he does relationships between the characters exceptionally well. So that level of complexity and character development is something you don't see all that often in fantasy. And it comes at the cost of pace, because the first book, especially, not a lot happens, in that book. Yeah. But it's brilliant. And I was thoroughly immersed right from the first book. So
that's just the thing with Daniel Abraham book. That's why his fantasy books, in my opinion, is so criminally underrated, because many readers stop after reading the first book. And I understand. Yeah, it is not the most amazing first book ever, but if you continue, I think you will find that you can find something to appreciate, that Daniel Abraham is doing a lot of great stuff in fantasy, especially with his character work and also his setting.
Yeah.
It's different from a lot of fantasy books.
That's right. Yeah, he does some really interesting world building, and the magical system in there is quite original. So yeah, it's good stuff. I recommend him for sure. And you're right, he's a bit different from anyone else, which is, it's not easy. There's so many great fantasies out there now to sort of stick out a little bit. Yeah. So cool. Well, I've had a thoroughly wonderful time talking with you, Petrik. And
same here.
I really appreciate you coming on for Dear Dr. Fantasy. I said it on the channel before, but I have a lot of respect for you. And I consider myself very fortunate to call you a friend here on BookTube. It's just it's a fantastic community to be part of, and I'm so glad that you're part of it too.
Yeah, the feeling is mutual here. Seriously, thank you so much for inviting me to Dear Dr. Fantasy. I'm the fourth one, right?
You're number 4. Yeah, this is the 4th episode. Yeah. So yeah. And go ahead.
So I'm one of the first one.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, ideally, this goes on for years, and I get to talk to all kinds of people. So I have a long list of people that I want to talk to. But you're definitely somebody that I thought of because I've enjoyed learning from what you do here, particularly in regard to how you promote the self-published and the indie press people. I think that's really important, and that's something that I feel is something that I can do here on BookTube as well. So and just what you do for the genre. So thank you.
And thank you as well. I have a lot of respect for you too.
Well, that's good. Yeah. So all right, my very best to you and your loved ones and everyone. Thank you for watching, and until next time.